Yo, 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 yo. It's been a while since you seen us all together. The heavy hitters is live in effect. As you already know, when the off season comes, you're gonna see the heavy hitters once a month. I am your host, K Styles, aka the Sixth Man. We got Bad Mike Sports to my stage left.
Yeah, yeah.
And we got the minister, Jew Talk Sports is in the building.
What up, people? I'm back.
He's
Welcome
back.
back. Welcome back.
Welcome back.
Welcome back.
Welcome back. Hey, Jew. How the family doing, Jew? They give an update to everybody. Everybody been asking about you. So how the family doing?
Everybody good. Y'all hear baby in the background. Y'all already know. Everything's going good though, man. Blessed, man.
All right, good. So, like I said, for everybody, like I said, we always give a shout out to you and Teacher Red. Like I said, just blessings and stuff, man, blessings, because we love to see that our niece is doing very good and crying and get on y'all damn nerves. So we good. All right, go ahead, kick this off, man. We got the three words, right? It's the what?
It's the real roll call.
All right. Today's roll call. We kicking that off with King Trey Way. Got Deshaun Caswell. Got Nathan Floyd. John St. Clair. We got BP. Joseph Thornton. P. Coleman. And one of my favorite ladies, Sonia. And we got Cody Caleb in the building. So, fellas, let's go ahead and get right into it, man. Um, so fellas been doing good. So, Jew, I'm gonna go ahead and ask you this question. I'm gonna let you kick this question off. Um, as we already know, being witness to this past Super Bowl with the Philadelphia Eagles destroying up the Kansas City Chiefs by using your mantra. And for those that are new, one of Jew's biggest mantras as far as football is you gotta sure up your trenches. So, my question to you is, based on this Super Bowl that just passed, what do you think that means for the Atlanta Falcons, man? What lessons did the Falcons have to learn by watching ass whooping like that?
Y'all hear that right there?
Yeah, sound yep.
Introduce herself right on the
Introduce yourself. Exactly.
She's stepping to the mic. Hold on 1 second, okay?
Nah, do you think? Do you think? Do you think?
Yeah, that's funny.
I remember them days too. I remember them days. But
But she's
Mike,
like,
like,
you ain't doing nothing today,
get your ass over here. It's my time. She Triple H this ass. But but and Mike, Jew was going to take care of that. I answer that question, Mike. Do you think that the Philadelphia Eagles brought in lesson as far as what the Atlanta Falcons need to do?
Man, as much as I want to say no, I mean you can't. You can't say no in this instance because it shows you also, on one hand, you have on one hand you have the defensive line where you drafted, I mean it's close back to back you can get with Jordan Davis and Jaden Carter. Um, a couple of edge guys, these guys aren't really first round picks like that, but they spent a lot of money. They spent a lot of resources allocated towards the defensive line. So as much as I want to sit here and say that this doesn't put pressure on the Atlanta Falcons front office to shore up the defensive line and make this one of the strong points of the team, I gotta say Raheem has to pay close attention to it, and Terry Fontenot, they have to. So I would just have to say yes. And make no mistake about that.
Yeah, they did kind of pretty much kind of show up as far as the blueprint, because just being able to amount that much pressure without having to blitz anybody,
Mm-hmm.
especially for a coach that's a defensive coach, it did kind of put him on the front burner as far as now it's time for you to finally put this defense together in the way that it needs to be done.
Mm-hmm.
Now, as now, Jude, like you said, um, that's the question I wanted to ask. Did that did that Super Bowl kind of reveal a blueprint for what the Falcons need to follow as far as how this offseason goes?
All right, man. Can y'all hear me?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, bet, man. Before my daughter starts talking in the chat, talking to the people. Yeah,
You good, you good.
yeah. I mean, looking at that Super Bowl, I'm like, see, this is what I talk about when I talk about the trenches. So I've been seeing a lot of different things being said about the Super Bowl, but what I took away from the Super Bowl was it goes to show you when we talk about protection, as far as the offensive line, as far as getting pressure with just four up front, you seen in that game how they just obliterated Pat Mahomes. You see how uncomfortable he was. This dude was literally running into sacks. Like he didn't even look like the same player. They made Pat Mahomes look like a mere mortal. But it just goes to show you when you can bring four and drop seven, that's the difference that it makes when you have those dogs up front. And I've been saying it for years and years. Since I've had my channel, y'all know I preach the trenches on the offensive line and
Mm-hmm.
defensive line. Whoever win those trenches,
Hmm.
we've seen it with the Tampa Bay versus the Kansas City Chiefs 2 or 3 years ago when Tom Brady his last season when he won the Super Bowl with Tampa. They couldn't block him up front. And it just goes to show you also with Andy Reid not willing to be, willing to run the football in that game. You just consistently kept dropping back Pat Mahomes, and they made them one dimensional. Really was by choice because the Chiefs just kept throwing the football. But I keep saying it: build that front seven, build that front four. When you got those dogs up front, you don't necessarily need super, good cornerbacks when you can get pressure on the quarterback. And that's what it showed in that game. I knew that the Chiefs were not going to come back because Pat Mahomes had no time to throw. Everything that he was doing was off schedule. He had to run around. And then at some points in the game, he started missing wide open guys because he was just looking for his hot read. He wasn't even reading the field because he was so uncomfortable. He was being hit on every single play. So it's like when your guys are getting beat within 2 to 3 seconds, the times that he did scramble and get positive yards, it was like holding, bring it back. So it's like if you can't block up front, that's the fundamentals. I always talk about it. If you can have those guys up front get to the quarterback, nothing else matters. It don't matter who you got on the outside. It don't matter how good your running back is. If you can't block those guys up front, that was the whole Super Bowl. You might as well gave the MVP to the defense. That whole defensive line should have got the MVP, or that whole defense in general as a unit should have got the
Mhm.
MVP because they took the game over. I told my wife, it doesn't matter. When they went up 17-0, I'm like, the Chiefs can't even get a first down, let alone score a touchdown. So at this point, it don't even matter at this point. I'm like, you see, when it went up like 24-0, I told my wife, this takes me back to the Falcons Super Bowl where all we had to do was run the ball. I said they can't come back because they can't stop them from running the ball, or they can't stop them from moving the ball. They can't run the ball and they can't block. If you can't block, that was the whole game right there. The Eagles defensive line took the whole game over, and that's pretty much was it. It wasn't nothing Pat Mahomes could do in that game, or nothing Andy Reid and that offense really could do once they became one dimensional. So we got to start with the trenches, and we got to start in the first round. I'm tired of seeing us wait to the third, the fourth, the fifth round. Take the best player. They keep saying best player available. I understand that, but I feel like you have to, when you say best player available for what you need. Stop keep saying best player available because guess what? The best player available in this draft could be a quarterback on your top, your draft board. So are you gonna take a quarterback when clearly we don't need one? Like make it make sense. Like I understand it's gonna be good running backs, good wide receivers in every draft, but at some point you got to draft what you need. So I understand the BPA best player available, but when you say best player available, we need to look at that defensive line or look at the defense in general and get more playmakers on that side of the ball. We got enough offensive weapons. We've been saying it. How many years have I said, Kate, we got way too many weapons on this team? I kept saying it over and over. We got way too many weapons. In the last 2 years, what have we been complaining about? We can't spread the ball around enough. Drake's not getting the ball. Bijan's not getting the ball. Pitts. The media's complaining about guys not getting opportunities, but it's like we built this team. We got what? Pitts was a top 5 pick. Bijan was the 8th overall pick, and Drake was the 8th overall pick. So you got 3 guys in the top 10 in the first round on this roster. I mean, come on, man.
Mhm.
Make it make sense.
Mhm. And Mike, kind of like, and I want you to go ahead and piggyback off what you was talking about that best player available. Um, do you believe that the ideology of best player available, or do you believe that this team has to attack a need first? Now, this is a question for everybody to ask. Everybody, put your opinions in the chat. Is this the off season where that best player available strategy had to be thrown out the window, or do you think they continue it? What's your thoughts on that, Mike?
I mean, there's a time and a place for best player available. The Falcons have done nothing wrong in regards to the best player available, as far as I'm concerned right now, up to this point. If you look at all the players that we have, and you look at the circumstances that we were in, you can't have a team in the NFL without a running back. You can't have a team without a wide receiver. And you cannot have a team without a quarterback. Those things are. At this point in time are essential to success. There hasn't been one team that hasn't had one of those three, if not all of those three, that has won the Super Bowl. Go back to the Chiefs with Pacheco, they have Rasheed Rice, and that's a huge. I don't think people realize how big of a loss Rasheed Rice was to the Chiefs because it's not so much that the Chiefs can't protect. They have absolutely nobody who can get open um in that wide receiver core. Like you're relying on an old, worn down tight end who's in his 10th or 12th year. I forget which one, but he's been in the league for quite some time. He's not the same athlete. Then you got the same thing with DeAndre Hopkins. He's not the same player. All right. He's a possession receiver at this point. He'll get you key catches at a moment, but he cannot get open like he once was. So I don't have a problem with the Atlanta Falcons and what they've done up to this point. But at this particular moment, I mean, let me rewind that just a little bit. The Falcons actually, like I said, offensively, they built in the trenches. Okay, they built in the trenches. We have a top 5 offensive line in the league. All right, we have a top 5. We drafted. Obviously, we got one of the best left tackles in the game, and Jake Matthews, Matthew Bergeron. We got him in the second round, and I think we got Dahlman in the third round, if I'm not mistaken. And then you got one of the best, if not the best, guard in the league, and then you got one of the best right tackles in the game, and Caleb McGarrett. So the Falcons have done a good job of developing and paying close attention to the trenches. But at this particular point, I think the philosophy of the best player available no longer applies for this team, because offensively they have all the weapons they could quite possibly have. There's nothing more to do at this point offensively as far as best player available. Even just drafting anybody. Falcons have wide receivers, they got tight end, they got running backs, they got offensive line. Offensively, they're good. So at this particular moment, I think the Falcons have to abandon that best player available concern as far as the offense is as far as the offense at this point. The best player available applies to the defense at this point. So at this point, man, the Falcons just have to focus on getting a stud up front. They gotta get a stud up front on that defensive line.
But I think what the biggest issue that comes down with this but as much as we kind of talk about drafting that, do we have a stud on the defensive line just from the simple fact that they spent a lot of draft capital on that defensive line? Is a little bit more than people realize. Because like you said, just past season alone, like you said, with Rook Ororo and Brandon Dorless. Unfortunately, with the Brandon Trice injury, we didn't get a chance to see him this year.
Mm-hmm.
But you invested some quality draft picks on some defensive linemen, and even just going just from the past couple of years, they've invested at least 6 draft picks on the defensive line and the edge rushers. I just think it just comes to a point where it's now you're going to have to try to trust these investments. I know it's a lot easier to go with veterans and guys that's been in the league for a long time, but it just comes down to a point now where when you start investing in these young players and these draft picks, you're going to have the confidence, or you're just going to have the wherewithal to just say, hey, man, go out there and do it. If you don't work out, I'm not going to worry about it.
I mean,
So, like you said, Mike, they've invested in the trenches.
mm-hmm.
Offensively, we've seen the players.
Mm-hmm.
Defensively, we haven't seen the full potential of the investments just because of playing time.
Well, that comes down to what I mean. Invest in players. I don't invest in the trenches. I don't solely mean just players. I'm talking about coaching as well. All right, that's the difference when you look at this. Look at the Chiefs and you look at the Eagles. They bring some of the best coaches in to help develop those guys. Vic Fangio is a guy that's been in the league for quite some time, and he had experience doing it. And nothing against a guy like Jimmy and Ryan Nelson. Those guys them ain't no real fucking coaches. Those are not real coaches, right? Those guys are position coaches. They're not defensive coordinators, and they're not head coach. They're not head coach worthy, and that's the problem. Investing into the trenches doesn't solely mean players. You gotta bring the coaches in here to help develop these guys the proper way, and furthermore, and most importantly, you gotta let these guys play. I mean, we didn't know that D'Angelo Malone was gonna get a couple sacks this year in the game, did we?
Nope.
Why? Because he ain't been on the damn field. You won't even put these guys on the field, so how the hell are you supposed to know what these guys are capable of? Like you looking for this magic spell and this magic moment in practice, and that shit. It like at the end of the day, it's nothing better than experience. Okay, you got to put these guys on the field. You can't see what he's able to do if you don't put him on the field in real time. Some guys and some players play better when it's a real game versus practice. So you got to give these guys an opportunity. That's one thing I see about the Eagles and what they've done. They give their young guys time on the field. They give them time. They put them in the spot and say, "All right, this is your spot. Go do exactly this." Josh Sweat is not a very good defensive end. Okay, let me say that again. Josh Sweat is not a very good edge rusher. He's not a very talented edge rusher. They put him in a spot and they told him to just worry about doing that. If he goes to any other team, you will not hear anything about Josh Sweat. Okay? I can comfortably say that. This is the first year that we really looked at him and said, damn, where the hell he come from? And he's about to be a free agent. But what the Eagles do, they put these guys in position to do one thing and work on one thing alone. That's how they can continuously bring in and get these sacks, the edge guys and the defense line, because they only ask these guys to do one thing. Look at what happened to Hassan Reddick. You ain't heard from him in the last 2 years. He think he worth $1 billion. He goes to the Jets, you never heard from him again. So they ask these guys to do a specific thing, and they put them in that position to do it. Falcons are not. One thing about Raheem, like I said, he's looking for this magic pill. He's looking for this magic moment, and it's not working. It's not working because you ain't putting him in the position to even see it.
And I think kind of piggybacking off of that point, it's not just a Raheem problem as well. It's a cultural problem as the Atlanta Falcons are reliant on the veterans just for the simple fact of is having trust in guys that's been doing it, that's been in the league. But like you said, it just comes down to a point where if we're going to be investing in these young guys, rather it be second round picks and third round picks and stuff like that, you got to trust in them. And I think we're all on the sentiment that you just said. I think this is about that time where you start actually going for the best guy within within the first round, the best guy that you can get within the first round to help solidify that defense. Because right now, compared to the offense, that defense is really the weakness of this team. And correct me if I'm wrong, you. What I think the last time we've even drafted high on defense was AJ Terrell.
Yeah, I believe so. Last time was AJ Terrell. Prior to that was Tack McKinley. And I really feel like the Tack McKinley, Vic Beasley kind of scared the Falcons away from drafting defensive linemen high, like in the draft. But if you look at what the Philadelphia Eagles do, They got the best GM in the NFL. He knows how to cook the books. He knows how to get guys on. You know, he knows how to basically front load the money and void off the later years on the contracts. But if you look at their draft last year, I say this all the times. Teams in the NFL don't know how to draft. When you look at the guys that they drafted, pretty much all of the guys that they drafted were the big name guys that everybody was talking about. Cooper DeJean, Quinyon Mitchell, Jalen Carter. How are they getting all of these guys in one? That was one draft class. Cooper DeJean was a rookie. Quinyon Mitchell was a rookie last year. Like they grabbing all of these different guys, and I feel like the problem with the Falcons and some of these teams have, they're looking for the diamond in the rough, like names that guys have like people have never heard of, and thinking that they're gonna be the splash type of guy. Like Max Crosby was somebody I'd never heard of in college. Troy Anderson that we have on our team had never heard of him. I feel like sometimes it's guys that's right there that you've seen playing your own backyard at Georgia or in the SEC that's been, that type of talent. But for whatever reason, we're like, no, we're going to try to find that diamond in the rough instead of taking what's right there in front of us. And I feel like that's been our problem. It's just like, take the guys out of there. Howie Roseman to me is not doing nothing special. Pretty much all of the guys that they drafted, I did a breakdown on. These were guys that everybody in the, as far as the scouts were talking about. They shouldn't have never even been on the board when the Eagles were drafting. But for whatever reason, teams try to get cute and they leave those guys. Like Jalen Carter, I understand why the Falcons didn't draft him because of the whole, the stuff he had that happened off the field. They probably didn't want him in the state of Georgia, being that he played at Georgia, and because of his background and stuff like that off the field. I understand that. The Jordan Davis thing, I understood that because the Falcons at the time, we didn't have any weapons on offense. I understand that. The Bijan Robinson pick, I didn't understand that, other than he's a generational talent. The Penix thing, I didn't understand that because I understood, okay, you brought in, Kirk Cousins. My whole problem was we all had this problem when they made the initial draft pick. It's like, why didn't you just go ahead and if you were going to take a quarterback, just took Penix? Why get two quarterbacks, Kirk Cousins and Penix? Because now we're going to get bit in the butt for it. Because now, guess what? Kirk is not going to be a Falcon next year. So now you looking at that cap, you know what I'm saying? We're going to have an issue with that. So I feel like it's been some errors that has been made by Terry. It's been some errors that's been made by Raheem Morris. But just to stay like on track as far as the draft, when it comes to the draft, I feel like it's a bigger issue than just our drafting. I feel like some of the issue is we don't sustain coaches. Like, think about it. Some of these guys that are here, they weren't even drafted by Raheem in this prior regime. Like, a lot of these guys were drafted when Arthur Smith was here. So now it's like you come in with a whole new regime. Now with Jeff Ulbrich, I don't know what this defense is going to look like because I don't know what he's going to be able to do with Ruka Rororo, what he's going to be able to do with Brandon Dorless, what's his mindset. And that's why I keep going back to, I said this before, just let Raheem Morris run the defense because he was here when they draft these players. He should know what he wants and what his vision is for these players. I don't know what Jeff Ulbrich's vision is for these guys that he didn't draft. You see what I'm saying? So it's going to be hard because it's like we're tearing down and rebuilding. So it's kind of hard to say like what this team is going to look like on the defensive side of the ball. My problem is, to me, we're just not taking the top talent when it's there to be taken. We're looking for that diamond in the rough. And a lot of the times those type of players are hard to find. You know what I'm saying? You're not going to find a Max Crosby. Those type of players are one in a million. Finding those type of players in the fifth round, fourth round, and then they turn out to be on the Myles Garrett level. Like Max Crosby's a top 5, top 10 defensive end. The chances you finding that are rare. Most of the guys, and I said this previously in shows, when you look at the top rushers in the league, the Khalil Max, you look at the Myles Garrett's, these guys are first round draft picks. If you think about the premier pass rushers, a lot of these guys are not guys you found in after the third round. You know what I'm saying? I'm just being honest. So we want to value the position. We got to start looking in the first and second round. That's where you need to be looking for your edge rusher. You don't want to wait until the third, fourth, fifth round and expect to find that diamond in the rough because the chances are you're going to just get a role player. You get what you pay for. If you're going to wait for to after the third round, you're going to end up getting what you pay for. The Max Crosby's, I can't name another fifth rounder that's doing what he's doing in the league consistent, that's getting double digit sacks. So If they think that we're gonna find that guy, good luck. That's what I'm gonna say. Good luck if that's
I
what
mean,
trying to build your team.
Drew, you everything you said is true, but you missed one thing. Don't matter how many times you keep drafting first round, second round. It don't matter how many you draft anybody. If you don't, what when you think of the Pittsburgh Steelers, what do you know they're going to do defensively?
They're gonna always have good defensive tackles. They're always gonna have a good defensive line. But I think what I'm getting to, Mike, is I think our biggest issue is not necessarily like even 10 guys in the first round. I think our biggest problem is the scouting. I really feel like
Hold on,
whoever
hold on. But none of that matters. None of that matters if you don't. You know what Pittsburgh is
Oh,
going to do.
oh,
They
I
going
see,
to
I
do
see,
two
I
things.
see. I see what Mike talk about. You gotta have a cult. You have to have a consistent
You gotta
culture.
have a culture of something. We don't know if we want to have strong defensive tackles or strong edges. We
right,
know when we go look at Philadelphia, they're gonna play at wide nine. It's
right.
easier to draft guys and develop guys when you have an idea of what you want to do. Because we've been down this road before with Tack and Vic Beasley. We've been down this road with Rashid Hageman. We drafted these guys in the first round. We had Deion Jones in the second round. But when we keep changing philosophy year after year, the players are gonna change, and that's the problem. This
I agree with you. I agree
this
with you. It
this
goes back to
right
what I
here
was
has
saying, Mike.
everything to do with Rich McKay.
Yeah,
He has been the team president. The team president of football operations is responsible for creating the identity of the team for what the head guy wants. If the head guy said, "All right, I want an offense that's gonna run the ball. We're gonna play action, and I want a defense that we're gonna get after it with our edge rushers and start the run with our defensive tackles." Okay, or like Chicago know they're gonna do two things. You're gonna have a middle linebacker, a great middle linebacker, a good middle linebacker, and a dominant defensive line. When you don't choose an identity, it makes drafting and free agency that much harder. That's the problem. Our philosophy changes defensively every freaking year. You're
that's
never going to
right.
hit a home run on these picks, on these draft picks, if you change your philosophy every freaking year.
And keep changing your coaches. It goes back to what I
Yes.
said. We keep changing coaches. Like when you change coaches and you don't have an identity, this is what we get. This is what you
Mhm.
get. We got a bunch of guys that don't know no direction. Like I keep saying it with no
There's
direction.
no direction. Yeah.
What we want. We don't know what our identity is. That's why I keep continues to say this identity is the offense. We're an offensive team because they're telling me by how they're drafting. When you're drafting
Mhm.
all the guys in the first round yearly, you're telling me what type of team you're trying to build. They're doing the same thing that Dimitrov did. They keep saying that they're not, but that's what we're doing. If you look at this team, we're offensive heavy. This defense, I can't name a bunch of studs on this defense. I can name some studs on the offense because they all were drafted in the first round. All our horses on the offensive side of the ball are guys we drafted. Pitts, Bijan, Penix, all of them dudes are studs. But on the defensive side, I can't guarantee that Rook is going to be that. I can't guarantee that Brandon Douglas is going to be that. And I agree with you guys about saying like we don't even play these guys. That's an issue as well because that was an issue when Dan Quinn was here. I kept saying if you're going to draft guys, you got to play them. Like we said, Cooper DeJean was playing. Quinyon Mitchell, these guys were starters for the Eagles. That just goes to show you they gave us the blueprint. If you watch the Super
Bro,
Bowl,
it ain't nothing cool. One thing I disagree with everybody on Cooper DeJean being good. He ain't good. Okay? He ain't good. He ain't good. That dude is optimistic. The dude cannot cover. But he optimistic because he fits in perfectly with their defense. All right? There's no in hell I would have drafted him. And
it goes
everybody
back.
keeps saying he's a stud, but again, you put the players around in a system, and the system makes those players look that much better because they're in a system where you know how you gonna use a Cooper. You know how you gonna use Nolan Smith. Nolan Smith is, when I tell you he sucks at stopping the run, covering, tackling, he sucks at that. But you put him in that wide nine, he turns into a superstar or a very good player. But you put them in a system. You got to put these guys in the system and say, all right, this is what I want you to be. And
Think
that's the
about
problem. We don't even
think
know
about
Rook is what we gonna do with Rook from game to
think
game. We
about
don't know if he's gonna get playing time.
think about this. 2020. When we talk about as far as defensive coordinators. Yeah, Raheem Morris, Jeff Obert, Dean Pease, Ryan Nelson,
Defensive
Jimmy
line guy.
Lake, and now we're going back to Jeff Obert.
Or
So
linebacker
since
guy.
so since 2020, we've had 6 different defensive coordinators that come from 6 different systems. That comes from 6 different situations. Hell, we can even go a little bit further back. Richard Smith, Marquand Manuel. Since 2018, since the Super Bowl year, we've seen almost 10 to 11 different defensive coordinators. We have not held on to a defensive coordinator for more than 2 years since 2017. That's a problem right there. And it goes back to what Mike and Jew were saying. You cannot develop defensive talent if the defensive talent don't know what the hell they're going to be if the philosophy constantly changes. So until we finally figure out, okay, what is we, we're going to be continually trying to find out what are we going to be if we don't be consistent with it. D. Coleman talk about Falcons DC is the defense of dark arts at Hogwarts. Yeah, that's a fact. So I'm right along with you. This draft, you're going to have to find a defensive stalwart with that first pick because I don't think the Falcon fans want to see them go with another offensive player in the first round.
at all. I don't care what it is. I don't want to see offensive lineman. I don't want to see none of that. And if you want to say best player available and you don't think none of these defensive guys is worth the 15, you trade back, get more assets, and then you draft defense. At some point, you got to build the defense. That's what everybody's kind of overlooking. It's like, and then we got to stick with a philosophy. Like y'all keep saying, if we keep changing philosophies, you're gonna end up having too many tweeners. And that's what I'm saying with this defensive line. It's like you got guys that are tweeners. You got Grady, you got Rook, you got Dorless. What are you going to do with these guys and how are you going to use these guys and deploy these guys? Stop drafting the same type of guy. I feel like we don't have enough guys that do different things. Like when you look at the Eagles, you heard Mike just say they got multiple guys that do different things. They don't have just the same type of defensive lineman. They got Nolan Smith, that's a speed rusher. They got Josh Sweat, who's like 6'5" long. He's like a defensive end type. Then you got Jordan Davis, who's more of a just a one tech or zero. He's just a nose. Then you got Jalen Carter. Then they got Jalex Hunt. They got so many different guys that do different things. And that's why they can rotate that defensive line like that. So it just goes back to what you guys are saying. Like we all are saying the same thing, but it all starts with going back to what we said last year. Find an identity and stick to it. It'll make it a lot easier for Terry to draft these type of players. It don't even matter if you keep changing coaches. The Steelers are gonna run the 3-4. I don't care who's coached over there. They've had different coordinators. The Eagles lost their coordinator after that first Super Bowl. They still run the same wide nine. They still run the same similar defense. With Vic Fangio, he didn't really come in and change a whole lot. The only thing that they did was similar to what the Falcons tried to do last year. Outside of they didn't play 10 yards off the ball, they just kept everything in front of them. They said, we're going to play 2 deep safeties. We're going to cover, not allow the deep play. We're going to keep everything in front of us. The difference is the players they got in the trenches. That's the difference. If the Falcons tried to run that same scheme, I don't think we'll have the same success if Vic Fangio was our defensive coordinator, because we don't have the same guys that they got on that defense. We can't stop the run consistent. They were stopping the run with 4 guys or they front 7. The Falcons, we watched our Falcons. They can't consistently stop the run. That's our biggest issue. We get pushed around in the trenches, and that's the biggest issue is you need them dogs, period. Grady, I'm sorry. He's not Jalen Carter. He's not on that level. I love Grady. He's not Jalen Carter. It might hurt a lot of Falcons fans to hear that, but he's not. You got to go get one. Go get you a Jalen Carter. Go get you somebody on that tier that can do what he can do. And if it is somebody on this, like that's on this team, they need to step up because I haven't seen it. I was disappointed with David Onyemata because his first year he played well, but last year I didn't see enough out of him or Grady. And that's why a lot of people are saying like Grady should be one of those guys. And I know we're going to get to that point of talking about what players should, be cut or should be gone. I've been, gung-ho on keep Grady here, but I'm saying keep him here not just because of his play. I'm talking about him being a locker room leader and the stuff that he do, that's the intangibles. His play, from what the money that he's getting, let's be honest, is he really worth the money? Based off of what we've seen from Grady, is he worth the money that he's getting? I would say no. Everybody keeps asking me, like, I made a whole video saying keep him, but it ain't based off his play. It's based off of everything that he does just in Atlanta. Personally, I don't think that he's worth the money. That's just me personally. Y'all can give me y'all thoughts on that.
Nah, at this point in time, I agree with you on that. You're going to have to turn the page on that. And going off of Mike's point, Philadelphia Eagles have been a wide 9 defensive team for damn near 20 years. They
No
never
matter
changed
who's
that
coaching.
philosophy.
Yeah, no matter
Yeah,
who's coaching.
they've been wide 9 in Philadelphia since Javon Curse was there. That's almost 20 years.
Facts.
But 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 as far as Grady, yeah, you might have to turn the page on that one. And I know that's going to hurt a lot of that. That's going to hurt people. But you're going to have to give these guys Root, Dorless, Zach Harrison. Like you said, you're going to have to give these guys a chance to actually show what they're worth because and kind of get to the point of the Falcons are in a situation right now where they're 11 million in the red as far as cap space going into this offseason. So it's going to have to be some tough decisions made.
Well,
And what you're saying about with Grady Jarrett, I just had that interesting feeling that Grady Jarrett might be one of those tough decisions that have to be made in order to improve this team.
well, looking at the numbers, actually, Grady Jarrett, if you just look at the numbers, there's not much separating him and Jalen Carter. Outside of just pure athleticism. That's pretty much. The numbers don't say that Grady Jarrett is not the same player. He gets tackles, he gets after, he gets the pressure. But the thing is, those guys, just 2 sacks separates those guys. So the numbers are not saying that Grady Jarrett is done. It's just the money that he's getting paid is saying that he like all right, I'm not sure if I want him to play him. For me personally, when I start seeing the numbers decline, that's when I'm worried. So again, you look at Grady's numbers; his numbers are still exactly what it was. And to be honest, the thing that Jaden Carter has that Grady doesn't is a guy that's capable of stopping the run. That's what Jordan Davis is. So it's not so much Grady that's the problem. It's really just the pieces that are around him and the philosophy. The linebacker, our linebacking core was one of the main reasons why the Falcons' run defense was so bad. And I've seen that myself. Went back, watched a lot of tape. The gap integrity, the gap assignment, all that was absolutely atrocious. We had some of the worst linebacker in the worst linebacking in the league. They were god awful. And I think that's the thing why you bring in a Jeff Ulbrich, because that's his specialty. At the end of the day, man, the Falcons you just got to get players to come in and do different things. We got too many players on this defense, especially in the linebacker. All these guys are slow. You can't have so many slow guys in the linebacker and expect to be a good defense. Nate Landman, another guy with no athleticism. Caden Ellis, no athleticism. The only guy that really had that athleticism, the Falcon defense actually looked pretty damn good, was Troy Addison, but he keeps getting hurt. So you can't consistently see what this team is until these guys stay healthy. So I think health, for one thing, with this linebacker core has kind of set back the defense a lot. Bringing in a guy like Justin Simmons, I didn't think that was necessary because he does the exact same thing that Jesse Bates does. So, like at the end of the day, the Falcons' issues are correctable. I would bring back Grady Jarrett, and I don't have a problem with his money, just because you look at the team that the Falcons have. They have pieces around him to make him that much more successful, or even take the pressure off of Grady. So all we ask him to do is just get after the quarterback. We have those pieces, the Rooks, the Brandon Douglas. At the end of the day, I think the biggest mistake, the biggest issue, or the biggest piece that they should explore cutting is obviously David Onyemata. I think he's the only player on this defense that really doesn't fit, and I don't see an upside when it comes down to him. And that's just being honest. That right there is just being honest. I've seen enough out of this defense where I think these guys can be very good, and they've had their moments this year. If we go back to a lot of the struggles with this Atlanta Falcons, it just comes down to not getting the keys, not being able to stop the run in key moments. This year we have not stopped the run consistently. Some of the worst teams in the NFL in rushing has beat this Atlanta Falcons defense running the ball, and we've actually played well in certain circumstances against teams like Philadelphia. Philadelphia running. They didn't have a huge game against the Atlanta Falcons, what we're accustomed to seeing. So we know that they have it in them, but it goes back to what we were saying. If you don't have that guy or that stud in that front seven, a stud, athletically, none of this matters. Because at this point in time, Grady Jarrett is not an athletic stud the way he once was. Still a valuable player, still an effective player, but they don't have that guy up front that's going to say, all right, I may not beat you with experience, but I can beat you with athleticism. And I think that's the thing that separates right now. That right there is exactly what Jalen Carter is. To be honest, I've seen Jalen Carter get his ass whipped by like guys that have no business even beating his ass. They have no business beating him head. But since he's so athletic and he's still young and he's still gaining that experience, he knows when to turn it on. He's learning when to turn it on and turn it off, and learning how to get after quarterback. So I think that's the thing too. When you look at where the Atlanta Falcons are, a lot of the success of successful defenses, they have experienced coaches and they have experienced players. And until the Falcons get that experienced guy along with that athletic stud up front, they're going to continuously see struggles.
And got about 20 something more minutes left before Mr. Wide Network comes on right after us. Uh, so the main question I did have for tonight is the initial thought of where the Falcons off season starts with, as far as we already know one of the biggest questions that's going to be going into this off season is Drew Dahlman. Um, Drew, what do you think the focus of this all starting this initial off season right now before the Falcons officially get into it? What is your thoughts on where they need to have their focus on as far as this team going into 2025?
I mean, I would do everything in my power to bring back Drew Dalton, as you're talking about. Just how I feel about continuity on that offensive line. Now, I don't think that they're going to break the bank for um, Drew Dalman, but definitely try to bring him back. Now, as far as like on the free agents that we bring in, I really feel like they just need to bring in people that fit their scheme. One thing that Mike has said about Jeff Ulbrich, I do think that he's going to improve that linebacking core, and I expect them to either draft the linebacker really high, like a Jalen Walker, I believe his name is, from Georgia, or
Uh-huh.
they're going to go in and bring in one of those Jets linebackers, either Quentin Williams' brother that plays with the Jets. They're going to bring in somebody that's familiar with this scheme, but we need linebackers that are more athletic, because this is what I expect that the Falcons are going to do. I don't know this because, as Kay always say, we don't know, but I really feel like they're going to try to use Caden Ellis more as a pass rusher. They're going to try to go in and bring in a true linebacker, like I said, similar to a Deion Jones, a guy that can flow sideline to sideline and get more athletic on that second level. I really feel like that'll help this team immensely, because last year we kept saying it, the middle of the field is wide open, even when Caden Ellis was back there, because Caden Ellis is not a great coverage linebacker. He can cover at times, but that's not what he does best. So I think they're gonna have to go get a guy that can cover like a Deion Jones, a guy that's kind of like a tweener, so probably like a smaller linebacker, but a guy that can go sideline to sideline and stop the run, a guy who can do everything, a jack of all trades, because Troy Anderson, the injuries has gotten the best of him, and we can't trust it at this point. So hopefully what end up happening, this would be really could really help the team, is if they go out and get that stud linebacker, whether it's in free agency, whether it's in the draft. Hopefully Troy Anderson comes back healthy, and now you have that Deion Jones, Devondre Campbell type of situation, or the Deion Jones Foyer situation, if Troy Anderson somehow, some way can stay healthy. But if not, I still would go out and bring in like two linebackers that can flow sideline to sideline. And then I just put Caden Ellis, use him strictly as a guy that just can play downhill all day. Don't have him in coverage, just have him blitzing, whether it's on the edge, whether it's him shooting gaps. I would just have him doing like a jack of all trades type deal. I would take him off the mic. I wouldn't make him the mic linebacker. I would go out and get a legitimate guy that can play that role. So that's what I'm thinking. That kid out of Georgia, Walker, I really think that he possibly is the guy that they might target, because looking at his film, I haven't done my breakdown yet, like my video of him, but just watching him at Georgia, he's listed as a linebacker. He can rush the passer, but he's a guy that's super athletic. That's what the Falcons need. They need a super athletic middle linebacker.
And by the way, the one that pointed that out, what was wrong with the Falcons defense, was John Abraham when we had him on the show. He the one that pointed out the fact that the Atlanta Falcons linebackers are just slow to react, and that affects the defensive line. because a lot of times when a lot of times when a lot of these when you call a run play, you need those linebackers to be in those gaps. So because defensive tackles, what they've trained to do in defensive linemen, they're trained to hold a point. So if those linebackers aren't in those gaps, a guy like Saquon Barkley, a guy like Bijan Robinson is going to destroy it because he's going to hit those gaps. So again, man, this is why, like, I'm giving Jeff Ulbrich a chance because I know that he's already shown that he can develop linebackers, and I think that's one of the biggest concerns with this Atlanta Falcons. We're going to see too. I think, well, I know the Falcon defensive run game is going to improve because of the linebacker play. But like I said, me and Kev, we've sat down and we've watched a lot of these things. The gap integrity for the Falcons, especially the linebacker core, you can actually go back. And I believe, who was it? May have been DJ Shockley, but they actually had a video where they was breaking this down. And no, I know who it was. It was dude for the NFL. Good God Almighty, he does the film breakdown for the NFL. Brian Baldinger. He actually did the breakdown on it and how slow the Atlanta Falcons linebacker were to just to react to a lot of the run plays. Like our linebacker, and it starts with Caden Ellis. Caden Ellis, he's slow, but the biggest fall off for the Atlanta Falcons this year was really Nate Landman. Nate Landman was god awful at stopping the run this year. I don't know why, but he was god awful for the Atlanta Falcons. So they have to do a better job of just gap integrity and linebacker play. I haven't seen this linebacker play this bad ever for the Atlanta Falcons. We've always had great to good linebackers. We've always had this, and this is the first year that I'm looking at anybody outside of Troy Anderson. None of these guys are good enough to be starting linebackers. Because Caden Mills, he's not a linebacker. He's an edge guy. I think we all know that at this point. He's an edge guy. He has no business. He has no business trying to be a middle linebacker or in coverage at all.
We've been saying this for a year and a half on that. We've been saying it for about a year now. Okay, Nellis is the better pass. He's a natural born pass rusher.
Mm-hmm. I mean, that's what he got his brother doing, right? His brother doing the same thing, right?
Yep.
Rushing the passer. They're not trying to turn him into a middle linebacker. Y'all know that boy is slow. Him man run about a 4.5, 4.7. Like why you got him out here covering guys that's running a 4.3, 4.4?
My thing is, why do you got Nate Landman covering slot receivers? That's the problem right there.
There's stuff like that doesn't make sense. So a lot of this. I know this may be hard for a lot of us to swallow, but a lot of our issues could be as simple as just bringing in a quality linebacker. You put a Ray Lewis on the team, trust me, you'll see the effects of a Ray Lewis or Brian Urlacher. You bring them linebackers in there that knows how to shoot those gaps, that know how to read plays, you will see the difference. We see the difference that Deion Jones is no longer on this team anymore. We see the difference when a Jesse Tuggle, a Keith Brookhill, those guys who can read plays. We see the difference in it.
It's schematics and it's players. Like you said, Mike, we need a couple linebackers and we need coaches that understand what these players do best. Because I feel like last year the defense could have been a lot better, but it was a lot of schematics. Like I kept wondering last year, like, why is Justin Simmons out of position? Like, he's an all-pro safety. Why look like he lost? Why look like these guys are not in the right positions? Why do we got defensive ends or outside linebackers running down the field chasing running backs like Judon? I mean, we kept seeing the same mistakes over and over again, and that was mainly coaching. And that's why I said the firing of Jimmy Lake was actually warranted, because we seen that in the last game of the season, the same mistakes over and over again. So I really feel like majority of it all goes back to coaching. I really feel like if you have a better coach, and hopefully Jeff Ulbrich can elevate the players that we have, and then you bring in, like you said, some more athletic linebackers, you'll see the difference. Because, like you said, we had moments last year where defense played really well, but it was mainly schematics that really showed its ugly head throughout the season, where guys were just put in bad positions, bad situations, and it made the defense look a lot worse than it was.
Mm-hmm.
So, um, like I said before, man, Falcons right now are 11 million in the red in cap space going into this off season.
A
Now
good
we
5 to 10 will probably go away with the cap increases, so it's not as bad as people think it is. It's just
okay.
that it would have had more money if if we wouldn't have did what we did with Kirk Cousins. So it's really not as bad. The 11 million really ain't as bad as it may seem, because the cap goes up every year. The cap always increases for the most part. So I think, it goes up maybe somewhere between 5 to 10 million each year. So the Falcons could get a good 5 million and cap with just the cap space going up.
Okay. Okay. So my thing is surprises as far as cuts, surprises as of free signings and stuff like that. What are y'all anticipations on that? There's some guys that you may say that you'd be surprised if they restructure or anything, or maybe some guys that may be on the hot seat.
Hmm.
You could just name a couple of them, like you said, just starting off with speculation. What y'all think?
I don't think there'll be any surprises. I mean, anybody that's cut at this point, they probably deserve it. So I don't really see any surprises, to be honest, because it
Okay,
doesn't make sense for where the Falcons are. Like, if you don't have a star guy on the defensive, what's the point of cutting guys? You know what I'm saying? It's like, like, these guys aren't even. Most of the guys on the defensive side of the ball haven't really had a chance to even showcase anything. So I don't think there's anybody defensively that's going to be worth or worthy of being cut. Like, I really don't. Like, Nate Landman, he's going to be a free agent. The Falcons done a good job. Terry Fontenot has done a good job of kind of positioning his team where money's going to fall off. So he's not going to put himself in a position where he's going to accrue a lot of dead cap hit. Um, Offensively, I really don't see anybody that's worth that has to be cut outside of probably David Onyemata. But, like, outside of David Onyemata, I mean, even where he is, um, he can still be a valuable piece depending on who you draft at that point. So it's like, even having a rotation with a young stud, a Grady Jarrett and David Onyemata, that's still better than cutting a David Onyemata.
mm,
Yeah, I pretty much agree with what Mike said about the David Onyemata situation. I really feel like they probably going to roll with it again, depending on what Jeff Ulbrich, once he sits down, views the film, and he gets with
Mm-hmm.
Terry and those guys, and he says what he sees fit as far as these players. That's what's going to come down as far as cuts, as far as re-signing in the secondary. You got Mike Hughes, free agent. You got D. Alford, free agent. In that crew,
Mm-hmm.
I see D. Alford coming back, because you heard Raheem Moore
Simmons.
over and over again that D. Alford, because he can play the nickel, because he can play outside, he can do a multitude of things on the defensive side of the ball. He'll be a guy to come back, because he's not going to break the bank to bring him back. I don't see Mike Hughes coming back. I don't see Justin Simmons coming back, even though he said he want to come back, unless it's on a 1 year deal, prove it deal. They're not gonna break the bank for him because he didn't do enough to show us the warrant. Like him, even though his resume says he's an All Pro, he didn't do enough last year to prove that he's still playing on that All Pro level. So he's gonna be a guy. If he come back, it got to be on a team friendly deal. I seen someone talking about Matthew Judon. The whole thing with Judon is if he wants to come back. I think they'll bring him back on a short deal as well. I can see him getting like a 2 year
Yeah.
deal, but it's if he
Mm-hmm.
wants to be on the Falcons because he might say, I didn't like the way I was used, so I'm gonna go to a team that a defensive coordinator that I'm familiar with that knows my skill set, and that's gonna put me in positions. Because guess what? All these players want to get paid, and they want to get paid top dollar. So when they stats don't look the way they supposed to look, they're gonna look to go elsewhere where they can go improve themselves, and they stats look like they're supposed to look, so they can get the kind of money that they want. So it depends on if he feels that Jeff Ulbrich, once Jeff Ulbrich tell him what his plan is for the defense, if he feels like his skill set fits what Ulbrich is talking about, then he might say, okay, I'm gonna be able to play with my hand in the dirt. I'm gonna be able to do some of those things I did in New England. Then he'll possibly come back. But if he sees that he's not gonna fit the scheme, he's gonna go elsewhere. But I think the Falcons would like to bring him back if if he's willing to come back on a reasonable deal. But outside of those guys, everybody else is pretty much under contract. So that's pretty much on the defensive side. The offensive side, Drew Dalton is the most important player. Outside of him, everybody else is locked up. Ray McLeod still has 1 year left on his deal. The only person that didn't like play last year that was on a 1 year deal is Rondell Moore. He's the guy that I'm looking at. Do the Falcons want to bring him back because he can play special teams and he can be a guy that's more explosive as far as kickoff returns and punt returns. If they decide that they're moving on from Avery Williams, I can see them bringing back Rondell Moore because that was a similar role he could have played last year. But outside of that, the offense is set. You know what I'm saying? Outside of Drew Dalman, he would be my top priority. On the defense is the main concern because we have a ton of guys that was starters last year, especially in the secondary, that are all free agents. Lorenzo Carter, he's not coming back. He was his contract is done, but they're not going to bring him back because he didn't have he didn't do anything. He didn't do anything to deserve to come back. So it's like it's pretty easy to know the guys that it's like they're not coming back. The guys that are on the bubble are those guys in the secondary because Mike Hughes played well enough that even if he said I'll come back on a 1 year deal, they might think about it because we know that he's familiar with what's his name, Jerry Gray. He's one of Jerry Gray's guys. So
Mm-hmm.
if he say he'll come back on like a 1 year deal and it's like a veteran minimum type deal, I can see him coming back because he played well enough. But I'm thinking the Falcons are going to draft the corner. So with you still got Clark Phillips, you still got AJ Terrell, you bring back D Alford, you draft the guy. You got Helms coming back off of injury. Then you might look at I did a breakdown on the safety for the draft. That's really good. It's gonna be some guys. It's gonna be some shakeups. But I'm thinking the main two pieces is the secondary. As far as bringing guys back, it's gonna be D Alford. I think it's gonna be Judon. And then if they thinking about looking at another safety because Helms is coming off an injury, so they might look at let's bring in a veteran that can play strong safety or free safety to put back there with Jesse Bates because I don't think Justin Simmons is coming back unless it's a reasonable deal.
And Southside here asked about Richie. Richie Grant may most likely be gone here too, just for the simple fact that he wasn't really used it at all this year. Maybe outside of a couple games, so they may not tread to that. And you just brought up an interesting point as far as this could be, like I said, that could be an interesting dilemma if they go secondary in that first round. Like you said, it's some safeties, there's some corners. That CB2 is it is a position of need as well. So yeah, they're in a very interesting dilemma right now here defensively. As we already know, everybody wants to see them attack this front seven with a multitude of players. But you got some secondary spots that need to be hell. You got spots in all three levels that need to be shored up. So now it just comes down to what is the most important move. Is it your defensive line that needs help? Is it your linebacking core that needs help? Or do you need to shore up that secondary?
And the schematics of it, K, like what you were just saying, it's the schematics. Like if they say we're going to want to play more man-to-man coverage, maybe you go and get Will Johnson out of Michigan if he's on the board, because he's a lockdown. I've been watching film on him. Lockdown, can lock it up. Put him on one side, put AJ on one side, press up. Play more press coverage, because he was just over there with the Jets with Sauce and all of those guys over there where they play a lot of man coverage. Maybe you do that.
Mhm.
You say, I'm finna lock it down, and then I'm gonna just send them dogs. I'm gonna send linebackers. You get more athletic at the linebacker position. You can blitz. You tighten up the outside. Those corners on the outside, and you be similar to those Revis days where you had Revis and Cromartie on one side. You told them y'all out on the island. Everybody else tighten up. You got Jesse over the top, covering everything over the top as that umbrella. That might be something that they look to do, because what I want them to do in this first round is go get you a day one starter. That's what we need. We can't go out there and get no developmental guy in the first round. You need somebody that's a dog that you can drop in there. Don't mean that they're going to be a star right when you put them out there, but you need somebody that's confident. You need somebody that can come in day one. You first game of the season.
Schematically perfect.
That's right. That's right. AJ Terrell type. AJ Terrell was dropped right in. He wasn't perfect when he first got, but he played from day one. That's what they need.
He's perfect for the scheme, and that's the thing. In order to be aggressive, you got to have guys that fits the bill as far as playing the man. In order to be aggressive, you got to have some guys that can match up skill wise with any type of corner, and mostly just with the athleticism, and that's the problem. Like if the Falcons are going to blitz more, or they're going to need another corner. So I could easily see a Will Johnson being drafted by the Atlanta Falcons, because like for the next 4 years or so with AJ, they ain't got to worry about paying them. And then Will Johnson being a rookie, you got to worry about paying him until like his 6th year in the league. So they're gonna have time. Like they're gonna have time to kind of put the defense together. And I honestly think the Falcons have enough guys up front. Zach Harrison, I think Zach Rook, Brandon Doyle is like they got players to work with. And like I said, me personally, I don't think you need to go and get an edge. And to be honest, I don't really see an edge in here that's that dominant. Everybody keep talking about this Mike Green kid, but I think he has a lot of issues as far as I'm concerned. He's mostly a power rusher. Now he got speed, but he normally beats offensive linemen with a lot of power, and that's dangerous in the NFL if you're gonna do that. Like you have to be able to have a large array of moves, like a guy like Jared Verse. Like Verse can hit you power and speed, and I don't really see a guy in this draft outside of the guy from is it Notre Dame, the Carter kid?
Oh
Outside of him,
no, Abdul Carter from Penn State.
outside of him, I don't really see anybody that has that ability. So, like I said, I've seen enough with Mike Green. Plus, he played a bunch of fucking scrubs. Like he played a bunch of scrubs. You're not gonna play scrubs in the NFL. So that power rush stuff, we seen that with Jamal Anderson with the Atlanta Falcons. That was the same thing with him. He beat guys in college with a lot of power moves. He didn't have a large array of moves. So like that's the thing with a guy like Jared Verse, and why he was the best defensive edge coming out is because he had a large array of moves. He had he could beat you with speed, he could beat you with power, he could dip, he could do all those types of things. He could stop the run. He was very good at all things. I don't see anybody in this year outside of maybe a Walker, because Walker has played. He's played. Georgia had him playing middle linebacker. They had played him strong. They had played him weak. They had him playing edge. So Walker is a guy that has a lot of that has a lot of athleticism. I think, to be honest, and I'm gonna just say this for a lot of Georgia fans: if the Falcons want another Caden Ellis, a better version of Caden Ellis, just go out and get Walker. He is Caden Ellis. He's a better, more athletic version of Caden Ellis.
Yeah,
I
man.
know, I know Georgia fans gonna love that I said that, but he's a better version of Caden Ellis.
The fact that you said that Will Johnson would be a good pick at 15, you already know Don in the background busting all kinds of nuts right now.
I actually like that. What
No,
you just said, I love it. To be honest,
I like Will
it's a
Johnson.
passing league. It's a passing league. You need corners right now. But
Like I said, man, it's a whole bunch of directions they can go in the draft, whether it be edge rusher, maybe secondary, or probably trade back and get a linebacker. I mean, thing is, all of your biggest needs is on defense, and however they attack it. Like I said, they can't do no wrong just from the simple fact that we still haven't seen Braylon Trice.
mm-hmm,
We still, like you said, you still got Cade Nellis.
they got
You
players.
got you got D'Angelo Malone, who's shown that he's capable of being a quality pass rusher for this team.
And you can
You got
bring back
Arnold
Taquan
Ebiketie.
Graham on a smaller deal. You can bring
Mm-hmm.
him back. He's a free agent, so you can bring back Taquan Graham. He's still young. He got time to improve. You can bring him back on a smaller deal.
But like you said, man, at the end of the day, the biggest hole on this defense right now is what the hell they gonna do with this linebacking core.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
This middle, the inside linebacking core.
The
Let me make sure I
inside,
put
that's the
that out.
problem. Yeah, the inside is the problem. Because
So
most teams like the thing is too, and that's why I keep telling people Cooper DeJean is not a very good corner. Okay. He's a schematically perfect corner for the Philadelphia Eagles. You put him on a top receiver, he'll get smoked. And I've seen it. I've seen him get smoked on top receivers. But what they ask him to do, he's very good at being that slot corner. Most teams in the league are putting some of their worst corners on the third. They put some of their they put some of their best wide receivers on that third corner. And with the Eagles, they have a top corner, they have a pretty good corner, and they have Cooper John in the middle. And basically, what he is, he's a third safety for them. They don't play him like a corner; they play him like a safety, where he can just watch the cornerback, watch the quarterback, watch that slot, and watch that tight end. That's what Cooper does. But if you're looking at Cooper to actually be a top corner and guard the top wide receivers, he would get smoked, and he has been getting smoked.
all
I'll
right,
say
man,
this
we about to go ahead, you.
before you close out, okay? I'll say this about Cooper DeJean, and I agree with what Mike is saying. I feel like that about their whole secondary, to be honest. None of those
Yeah.
guys. That's why I keep saying build the trenches. If your defensive line is good, how many times have I said you don't need your cornerbacks to be great when you can rush the pass? I keep going back to it. That Giants team, can nobody tell me if I said right now I'll give you $100 if you can tell me on that Giants team that beat the undefeated Patriots team, who were the corners on that team? Give me all four corners. We can't name.
We
You can't
can't.
name off the top of your head because they didn't have no dominant corners. They didn't have no dominant safety, but they had dominant guys up front. You know, you can name Strahan. You can name all those guys. They
Yeah,
had a Kiwanuka. You can name what's the one guy that
Justin
we had on
Tuck,
that team? Umanyura. You can name Justin Tuck
Justin
off
Tuck,
the top of your head. Yeah. You can name Antonio Pierce at middle linebacker in that front seven.
right?
Mm-hmm.
So at the end of the day, what the heavy hitters is saying here is defense needs to be a priority in this draft.
Mm-hmm.
And if we go, and some of these mocks have mocked the Falcons getting another wide receiver. For the love of God, If that shit happens, I'm here for the crash out because that's gonna be a fucking hilarious. But y'all make sure y'all go ahead and tune into Mr. Wise Network.
Wow.
Hey man, like you said, man, heavy hitters. It's been a while since we've been over here. This is the off season, so you're not going to get the heavy hitters every week. You may get us once or twice a month. It depends on what news come out here, but definitely make sure y'all continue to support Jude Talk Sports.
Man, he been killing. He been embarrassing me with these damn draft prospects.
That look, I'm about to say you gonna have to be on the scouting department with damn Terry Font. No way you been putting out these damn.
Hey, they need to call me, man. Look, I'm available. Y'all send me that application so I can go in here and get y'all some dogs. I'm telling y'all, man. On this defensive side of the
Hey,
ball, look, I'm gonna put my own plug in on the defensive side of the ball. Y'all want some dogs? It don't take me long. I can watch one highlight film and say, all right, yeah, this dude got it. It don't take long. That's why I say I don't know what they're looking at. I can look at the tape and say, oh yeah, he jumping off the film. This dude, yeah, he the real deal. Or I can look at him and say, no, I don't think that this guy gonna be, or he gonna be a project. Like I seen somebody Southside ask, he said James Pierce, he said Shamar Stewart. Go look at my Southside. Go look at my videos. I did a breakdown on both of those guys. I'm Shamar Stewart. He's one of them guys that scares me, and I'm gonna stand 10 toes down on that. He's a tweener. If you go look at his film, everybody keeps mocking him to the Falcons, but he's one of those guys at Texas A&M that scares me. He has talent, but we have Shamar Stewart on this team. His name is Ruka Rororo.
Mm-hmm. You don't need too many of those, man.
right, right. Hey man, like you said, man, it's draft time. Like you said, this is the best time of the year for us. But like I said, if Terry Fondo is thinking about getting a wide receiver at 15, boy, this fan base about to light his ass on fire if that goes.
Look,
So
as
yeah,
long as if the kid from Ohio State, I'll do that because I think that dude is exactly what the Falcons need on offense to go with Michael Penix. This offense will be damn near unstoppable. We get the dude from Ohio State. That dude is a monster. He'd be perfect for the Falcons, but we'll see.
I'm
the
good
one
on that. Keep Ray. I'm good on that.
he like I ain't trying to spend no more
No,
draft picks on that shit.
no, I'm saying that if the Falcons were to go that route, and if they were to go that route and then focus on the rest of the picks, um, the rest of the picks on defense, that's the only way that I would do that.
These motherfuckers talking about some Luther Burton the third. Nah, boy, these Falcon fans gonna crash out in the worst way, boy. And I'm here for all of it. I'm gonna be messy as hell with them. But like I said, man, y'all make sure y'all continue supporting the Heavy Hitters Live. Like I said, we're gonna bring some more content on this channel as well, not just the lives. Um, like I said, y'all just go ahead and send in your requests as far as what y'all want topics to be talked about. And like I said, man, y'all make sure y'all go over to Mr. Wise Network because they got the Wednesday night tea over there. So until next time, people, we ain't here to play.
Oh no,
We here to stay.
oh yeah, nigga.
You ain't gotta go home.
But I want to piss you off by drafting the wide receiver.
Man, Mike, you already trying to stir some shit up over here, man. Don't do that.
No, I'm dead serious about it though. I'm dead serious. The Falcons, the thing is, drafting a wide receiver, it has to be a perfectly schematic wide receiver.
I
Has
think
to
it's
be
all
schematic.
depends. I think it all depends on. I think they only draft a wide receiver if Kyle Pitts is not here. That's
Yeah.
the only way I think about it.
Mm-hmm.
So, hey man, deuces, y'all.
Peace.
Please.